In the Perspectrum podcast, we discuss controversial topics. Outside of this context, Michael and I are both working professionals. While doing this show, we are not acting as agents or representatives of our respective institutions, and none of the views that we express reflect the outlooks of our employers. So don't come to my office and throw toilet paper at me.
And I don't have an office, but don't come to my cube. Hello and welcome to the Perspectrum. I'm Michael Bloom.
And I'm Nathan Seelove.
So first off, before we get into it, I have to thank Nathan and Katie for running the show last week while I was off. I think they did a great job and really appreciated being able to take a couple days off and go backpacking in the mountains with a couple buddies. So it was awesome.
Michael is a lot more adventurous than I am. I have been backpacking through outer space on Starfield.
Oh, that's adventurous in its own way. Yeah,
that's been my vacation.
Yeah.
Have I mentioned on this pod that that's an awesome game? Hey, it's an awesome game.
You did mention it last week, in fact, that it's awesome. I feel like that's going to be a reoccurring theme on this show. Is you're going to keep talking about how good Starfield is.
Yeah. It's because I'm paid off by Big Bethesda.
Of course you are. Yes, of course. But that's not the subject of our episode today. We have a couple really exciting topics that are not Starfield. Sorry, Nathan. You can maybe a different podcast.
It's okay. I get it.
So first off, we'll be talking about the impeachment inquiry that the House of Representatives has launched into Joe Biden. And then we will have a segment talking about the United Auto Workers strike, diving kind of deep into that subject and like what's driving the strike and kind of where we stand and what the potential impacts of the strike will be.
Yeah, I'm excited. It feels like news actually happened this last week.
I know.
You know?
Yeah, it's true. Not great news.
Not great news.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the strikes are a generally positive trend in the United States, I would say.
Yeah. Well, yeah, kind of. I would say like to the degree that it's positive that these poor workers have to threaten their companies in order to get basic wages, like or like basic like wage growth. I don't know if that's overall positive, but I'm glad that the strikes are potentially having a positive impact. But we'll get into it.
Yeah.
So first off, let's talk impeachment inquiry. So last week, House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy directed 3 House committees led by Republicans to launch investigations into whether the House should bring impeachment charges against President Biden.
Yeah.
To which, if you're a Democrat, you're probably thinking, what the fuck? Like, shouldn't I have heard something about this if Biden was going to get impeached? And if you're a Republican, you're probably thinking, thank God the Biden crime family is finally seeing some comeuppance. And so we're here to break that down.
Yeah. And I just want to be clear about something before we go into this. Neither Michael nor I are married to Joe Biden.
Sure. Yeah, that's true.
Not
even metaphorically.
Not even metaphorically. Right. Yeah. We have been very critical of him on this pod, and I will even go so far as to say that he is corrupt. Now, I will say that he is corrupt in the way that a lot of Washington politicians are corrupt, in the fact that he takes corporate PAC money and he does the bidding of corporations as a result of that. But that has been declared legal by the Supreme Court, so that's not something he can be impeached on. In an ideal world, it would be something he could be impeached on. But in an ideal world, literally every other fucking politician in Washington would also not be doing that. Yeah, so totally. I'm not a huge Biden defender or a huge Biden lover. He's done some things that I like, and he's done plenty of things that I don't like. So I am trying to approach this with as much of an open mind as possible.
Yeah, totally. So McCarthy, in his press conference announcing, his direction to these committees to launch this inquiry, claimed that the president had lied to the American people about his knowledge of his family's business dealings. And overall, like, these claims are related to Biden's interaction or alleged interaction when he was vice president with Hunter Biden's foreign business deals and activities. And we'll get into why that kind of like should catch your attention a little bit. But even like right during the press conference about this, investigation, we didn't really learn anything.
Yeah. And so far, a lot of the evidence that they've put out, a lot of it is circumstantial. We'll go through each piece of evidence that they've discussed. Some of it is actually like very easily debunked. Some of it's circumstantial. Some of it is something where there might be something there if they're able to find more information on it, and I'll go over that. But I also would like to point out that every bit of credence that we give them for this impeachment inquiry should be done with the automatic caveat in the back of your mind that, but these are still fucking hypocrites because they voted to exonerate Trump. All right. These are people that voted to exonerate Trump for something that was very clearly a violation of his oath of office. Yeah. The fact that he used the power twice, like the first time when he used the power of the presidency to pressure a foreign government into investigating a political opponent in a quid pro quo scheme. And these people voted to exonerate Trump for that. Yeah. So you should keep that in the back of your mind with everything that I read, even the stuff where I say there might be something here. Keep that in the back of your mind.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Because these are a bunch of fucking hypocrites, and this is a political hit job. That doesn't mean that there might not be merits to it, but the reason behind it is absolutely politically motivated. It's a political hit job, and these are huge fucking hypocrites that don't give a fuck about corruption.
Yes. Yes, that is pretty clearly true. But to your point, like, even if their motivations are wrong, we should evaluate it on the evidence for sure.
Yeah.
So let's establish kind of the basics here. So this is an impeachment inquiry. It's being led by 3 House committees. It's being led by James Comer of Kentucky as the head of the Oversight Committee, by Jim Jordan of Ohio as the head of the Judiciary Committee, and then being led by Jason Smith of Missouri as the committee chair for the Committee of Ways and Means. And so all of these committees are kind of with this investigation, they're able to like subpoena witnesses and basically use the power of the House as rather than just a congressional inquiry into like, for like legislative purposes. Now they're able to kind of put at least according to McCarthy, put kind of the full power of the House behind a potential investigation of actual wrongdoing. So the way an impeachment inquiry works is that, if a federal official is investigated for possible wrongdoing, they get this inquiry, and the House is able to write up articles of impeachment if they found that the federal official, in this case the president, has committed high crimes and misdemeanors. And then under the Constitution, then the Senate has the ability to convict an individual if articles of impeachment are drawn up. Now, to be clear, this is just an investigative stage. This is not the stage of bringing articles of impeachment. Biden has not been impeached. This is simply an investigation into like to find evidence to potentially determine if he should be impeached or not.
And honestly, effectively, not a lot is really changing except the name because they've been investigating this since they took control of the House of Representatives.
Yes, totally.
So calling it an impeachment inquiry at this point is just a rhetorical change. Effectively, it's politics.
Yeah.
It's just politics. Yeah, it's them declaring like, we're going to investigate this further.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what you've been doing. So
yes.
So let's go through this. First off, and this is not expressly talked about in the actual House Oversight Committee report that they put out, laying out the overview of the evidence. But one of the big things that sparked this was back when Joe Biden was vice president, there was a Ukrainian prosecutor named Viktor Shokin. I think that's how you say his last name, who Joe Biden actually did use the powers of the United States to try to pressure Ukraine into firing him. Now, he was a prosecutor in Ukraine, and Burisma which is a company that Joe Biden's son Hunter Biden worked for, was later investigated in Ukraine. Now, what the claim by Republicans on this particular thing is that Shokin was planning on investigating Burisma. Therefore, Joe Biden was using his powers as the vice president in order to try to get him fired, to protect Burisma, to protect his son. Now, there are a few problems with that, and there are a few reasons why that's bullshit. First off, the only evidence that Shokin was ever going to investigate Burisma is him saying after he was fired, oh yeah, I was totally planning on investigating Burisma. There's no actual paper trail of it. It's just his word. And his word should not necessarily be trusted because he was actually universally despised by the international community. The European Union wanted his ass fired because they believed that he represented the corruption of the past from the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it could even be argued that because this particular prosecutor was corrupt, and it was the official view of the European Union and the United States, not just Joe Biden, but the United States in general, at the direction of Barack Obama at the time, that he should be fired, that he should no longer be an official within Ukraine. Mm-hmm. All right. And it can easily be argued that his firing actually put Burisma in more jeopardy of being investigated because now they can actually put in a competent investigator, a competent prosecutor.
Yep.
So everything about that story is just complete and utter fucking bullshit.
Yeah. And it might actually sound familiar if you can remember back to a few years ago, because Trump's Department of Justice already investigated this claim. And they investigated it for like the better part of a year and found no sufficient evidence to pursue it further. And yeah, and to Nathan's point, like many countries, including the official position of the United States government, were pushing to remove this Ukrainian official because he was corrupt. Ultimately, like this, if anything, this, to Nathan's point, would have put Hunter Biden in his capacity as an official for Burisma in more jeopardy. So to Nathan's point, totally bullshit, totally debunked. Also, it was fucking a decade ago, which I think is a key theme of all of these things, which I think we shouldn't lose sight of.
Yeah. So let's look at the things that the Oversight Committee are actually alleging and laying out as the potential evidence. To their own admission, there is no proof. This is I'm reading directly off of their overview that they've put out. There is no proof so far that the president cashed checks from foreign sources. Okay, so they're not alleging that. But there's plenty of evidence that son Hunter and others in the Biden family received millions of dollars from foreign partners who believed they were buying influence from his father. Now, that's fucking meaningless.
Yes.
All right?
Yes, it is.
That is completely fucking meaningless. Basically, what they're saying is Hunter Biden was going out there saying, hey, I'm a Biden. Guess who my pa is? He's the vice president. Yep. And I bet you if you give me money, if you do businesses with me, I can get you in with him. The fact that he was using his name to get contracts is fucking meaningless.
Yeah, exactly.
It's meaningful.
Yeah.
It's meaningful if Biden was actually helping him, but the fact that he was going around using his name means nothing with regard to Joe Biden.
Exactly. Yeah, like this is the strongest specific claim that they have. Like this is like their strongest, allegation. And it's meant to be an illustration of, Hunter trading on his family's brand in order to like benefit himself, which is like great. He probably did. His last name's Biden. Yeah. Biden's a politician. I don't really know too much about Hunter, but he kind of seems like a piece of shit, and and he probably did. And pieces of shit with big names do that.
Yeah, and I think that's another good point just to go ahead and lay out. You're never going to hear me defend Hunter
Yeah.
He's clearly a piece of shit. He's clearly a corrupt piece of shit.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny because like Republicans had this business, like this, bombshell witness is how they kind of phrased it. Because again, they've been investigating these claims in the House for like 9 months already. And, this previous associate of Hunter's was testifying before this House committee. And he testified that over the span of 10 years, Hunter would attempt to put like President Biden, not president at the time, but now President Biden, on the phone with associates. So would like put the phone on speakerphone, and when he was around to try to like trade on his name.
And this is Devin Archer.
Yes,
this is Devin Archer.
Yeah, exactly. But Devin Archer testified that he never once spoke about any business dealings on any of those phone calls. And again, we're talking, and I think he cited like 20 potential calls over a 10-year period.
Yep.
And so like,
and that's, and that's the next thing that the Oversight Committee points out. Yeah. And they actually conveniently leave out the part of his testimony where he specifically said they did not discuss business.
Yes, exactly. So New York Representative Dan Goldman described this, I think, very aptly by saying that Archer's testimony essentially like illustrates that Hunter was selling the illusion of access to his father. So trying to take credit for things that the vice president did, basically just doing exactly the kind of grift that you would expect from a piece of shit with a big name.
Yeah. Which, that's bad. But that's
bad
not
on
Joe
Hunter
Biden being corrupt.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Next, and this is one that I would actually be more interested in learning more about this particular thing. Mm-hmm. But as it stands, it looks like it's kind of a big nothing.
Yeah.
But so while Joe Biden was vice president, there was a business associate of Hunter Biden's named Eric Sherwin that had apparently sent some emails to the at the time communications director for Joe Biden that was supposed to provide a list of like talking points for media outrage or media outreach with regard to Hunter Biden's role on the board of Burisma. So basically, here's what you should say to the media if they ask you about what's going on with Hunter Biden. And she emailed him back saying, VP signed off on this. So, I mean, I don't like that. Mm-hmm. I don't like the fact that a business associate is specifically giving them talking points, but that doesn't really rise to the level of impeachment. And I wouldn't even say it necessarily rises to the level of corruption. Like it's basically like, hey, here's what would be cool if you said to the media, and they're like, okay, yeah, that works. We're fine with that.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's also hard to assess without like knowing what the talking points are. Like it could be something like what's, Hunter Biden's specific role within Burisma, something that the media might ask and they're going to need to know the answer to and not get it wrong. You know what I mean?
And if that's the case, that's perfectly innocent.
Yeah. That's a very normal thing that you would need. So it's weird. Like, I think it's a little bit hard to avoid kind of grading on a curve. Cause we're like, one email that could be innocent or not for Joe Biden is like, well, I guess this could be corruption if it really was bad and it really went, south, but I don't know. And then we're like, we got this perfect phone call with Trump. Not again, cause Trump's not the bar. Like he's obviously a corrupt piece of shit, but it's kind of funny to like compare the two. Just cause it's like, the bar is so different.
Look, maybe I just wasn't looking in the right places, but I could not find what the talking points were. Mm-hmm. I was trying to find that. I don't know if those are a matter of public. I don't think those are a matter of public record. So, I don't know what those are. And I would say like if you're gonna if you're going to be investigating that, then I think that that's one of the things that you should look at. You know, what were those actual talking points? Yeah. Were they dicey?
Yeah.
What was it that Joe Biden signed off on? And if it's dicey, then show us. If it's not, then shut the fuck up.
Seems like something they could have done in the last 9 months of their investigation into this prior to becoming an impeachment inquiry.
Yeah. And again, another thing that they point out is that there were the State Department's George Kent had warned Joe Biden in 2015 that Hunter's presence on the board of Burisma could be used to undermine America's anti-corruption message. Okay.
Sure.
I think that's a fair criticism, but it's not necessarily, again, that's
a crime. No,
that's not a crime. And that's what Hunter's doing. That's not what Biden's doing. Like, what are you saying? Like, Biden, you need to tell your son to quit his job?
Yeah.
Like, what's
it doesn't seem like Hunter's a son that's going to listen to Biden anyway, based on all, the drug use.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, yeah. It's,
Yeah. And another thing that they put out, and I'm insulted that they included this because to their own admission this hasn't been corroborated. They say an FBI informant has told the Bureau that Mykola Zalewski, I have no idea how you say that name, Burisma's CEO, paid $5 million each in bribes to Hunter and Joe.
Yep.
Then they immediately say this hasn't been corroborated.
Yep.
Then don't fucking say it.
Yeah. Then don't fucking include it.
Don't fucking include it. If you corroborate it, then include it.
Sure.
Show me the evidence. And look, I will say, if there is evidence that actually happened, that's the smoking gun.
Yeah, of course.
If you show me evidence that happened, that's the smoking gun. I will flip on a dime and be like, yep, impeach him.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like if this company directly paid $5 million in bribes to Joe Biden, I will flip on a dime and say impeach him.
Sure.
But corroborate that shit or don't even bring it up.
And I totally agree. What makes it even more absurd is that Comer, who's heading the investigation for the Oversight Committee, has made a big point of calling out that Republicans will be subpoenaing bank records, like personal bank records, for Hunter Biden and James Biden, who's Joe Biden's brother. But when he was asked why the committee has not yet subpoenaed President Biden's personal financial records, Comer said it's because investigators have not uncovered evidence that he received any of the scrutinized funds. To your point, not only is it not being corroborated, they don't even have enough evidence to go look at whether there's evidence of that $5 million. There's no evidence that he's been tied to any corrupt funds whatsoever. So basically what they have is Joe Biden, when he was vice president, had a piece of shit son who is kind of being a piece of shit and trying to trade on his name and just overall being a bit of a, annoying rich kid trying to get richer based on, giving the illusion of being able to peddle political influence. Yeah. Again, all of this is about Hunter. It's not about Joe Biden.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's one that I will say, this is another thing where if they can actually corroborate this, then this might be a smoking gun. But so far it's just a he said, she said. Mm-hmm. They say, more recently we learned that Hunter business partner James Giller emailed Hunter and other associates that 10% of a deal with a Chinese energy firm, CEFC, was to go to the big guy. Former Hunter business partner Tony Bobulinski said that the big guy was Joe Biden. So we do know that email was sent. So far, we have a former business partner testifying. Well, actually, not even testifying yet. This guy has not officially testified this in front of a grand jury yet. He said he was willing to, but he hasn't done that officially yet. Saying that the big guy involved in that is Joe Biden. But again, that's, if that's true, then that's the smoking gun.
Totally.
And look, I would say that that's worth looking into.
That seems right. Totally.
But
again, I go back and like, not to defend Joe Biden, but like what have they been doing for 9 fucking months?
yeah,
Like, what have they been looking into if not that? Like, that's the thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then the last thing that they lay out is the Biden money trail goes through at least 20 shell companies. The vice president used different email pseudonyms, and at least 170 financial transactions related to Hunter or Joe's brother James were flagged to the Treasury as suspicious. Again, I don't give a fuck about his son or his brother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is about him.
Yeah.
They also said, so apparently a pair of IRS agents, Jerry Shapley and Joseph Ziegler, told Congress that the Justice Department undermined their investigation into Hunter Biden's emails and tax filings. This is another thing in which the fact that they included this is fucking insulting, because that investigation is like 3 levels removed from Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Because remember, it was appointed, like, it was a special counsel that was appointed by Merrick Garland, who was appointed by Joe Biden. All right. And the reason why we put out special counsels, why we appoint special counsels, is so that politics don't enter the mix. Now, if you want to criticize Weiss for going easy on Hunter Biden, you can. That's fair. We did it.
Yeah.
Michael and I both made that argument. But to say that Joe Biden specifically pressured the prosecutors in that investigation to go easy on his son, there's just no evidence of that.
Yeah.
And like the fact that it was a special counsel that wasn't even appointed, that was appointed by the Attorney General, so that politics could not be involved in the first place, because you wouldn't want politics to be involved in it, because yes, it is the president's son.
Yeah. It should be above reproach, and it is.
Yeah. So just throwing that in there again is just insulting to the intelligence of anybody that reads this, because they just don't have any fucking evidence that that Joe Biden did anything to impede the investigation. You can criticize the investigators for not doing enough. You can say that the investigation was impeded. That's fine.
Yeah.
But that is nothing. But there's no evidence that has anything to do with Joe Biden.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. It's kind of remarkable. And again, Joe Biden has been impeached. He has not been impeached. Yeah. But it's still remarkable that they're attempting to make these political points using an impeachment investigation, because that's as far as they can even feasibly go at this point. So Michael Gerhardt, a professor of constitutional law at the University of North Carolina School of Law in Chapel Hill, said, quote, "This current attempt to conduct an impeachment inquiry is unlike any others I think we've had in American history, because in the past there's always been some credible evidence of wrongdoing by the president that is part of the complaint against the president. But in this situation, we don't have any credible evidence, and instead, this process seems to be what is sometimes called a fishing expedition."
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are other ways in which this differs from any other time that an impeachment investigation has ever been conducted in American history. First of all, this, again, as I mentioned before, these are all about things that occurred like a decade before Joe Biden was president. All things that, if they were crimes, could have been investigated and prosecuted, and likely would have been. Like, the point of an impeachment is to get a president out of office because their behavior is so egregious that it puts America at risk, right? The point of an impeachment is because that's what our Congress can do to hold a president accountable when you can't arrest them because they're the president and you're not able to. Like the thing we're doing here is like addressing a president's conduct while in office. And the fact that it's been like a decade since any of these even allegations have ever even occurred, even if they were true, is definitely undermines the purpose of the investigation overall. Now, if there's evidence of corruption while in office, like there was under Trump, if there's evidence that he's being bribed or has received undue influence or something like that, obviously we want to impeach him over something like that, but like that's not even on the table here. So it's just a remarkable like political stunt, and it's just really disappointing.
And I will still say, even though this supposedly allegedly happened when he was vice president, I will even say, like, I will be fair and I will be consistent. All right. And I will say that if you can show me some actual evidence, some actual corroborated evidence that the $5 million bribe was actually, that there was actually a $5 million bribe that was paid to Joe Biden. If you can show me some actual evidence that the big guy in the email is Joe Biden, if you can show me some actual evidence of those two things, because like the rest of this is pretty much just bullshit. But if you show me actual evidence of those two things, then even though it happened when he was vice president, I'm even prepared to say, you know what? That's a direct bribe. That's direct corruption.
Yeah.
And you know what? Impeach him.
Yeah.
I will support it.
Yeah.
I will support it if you can show me that evidence. But so far, you haven't.
Totally.
And you had plenty of time to do it.
Yeah. So the real motivation here, I think two real points I want to make before we close this segment. One, the real motivation here is like patently obvious, which is to try to draw a false equivalency between Trump, who's been actually impeached twice, and Joe Biden, and try to make a claim that really like all politicians are corrupt, they're all the same, and as a result, like we should be able to elect Trump again and not worry about it because Biden and Trump are really the same. Which is obviously not true. Just clearly not true. Unfortunately, though, it seems like the Republicans' political strategy here is gaining traction, even if their actual like impeachment inquiry is total bullshit. At least so it seems. So, as of right, according to a recent poll, 48% of voters said that they support the current investigation into Biden, so the impeachment probe, including 36% of Democrats and 63% of Republicans, which is stunning. I think it really speaks to how much we just expect politicians to be corrupt, because without evidence, without like anything rising even close to the level of evidence that Joe Biden has taken some kind of illegal action, like nearly a majority, just under a majority of voters think that we should be investigating the president. And now it's time for a more lighthearted segment, A Good Actually. So Nathan, what is A Good Actually?
Michael, A Good Actually is something that we do because the world sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. I mean, we got climate change,
Boo.
Corrupt politicians.
Yeah. Other bad stuff.
I was reading an article recently.
Snakes.
Yeah. I was reading an article recently saying that a meteor that is basically like could be the equivalent of like 25 nuclear bombs might hit Earth in like 150 years from now. And I was like, damn, that's depressing.
That is depressing.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't look into it as much as I probably should have, but like, it's probably going to be one of those things where it's like, yeah, it has a higher chance of hitting Earth than most stuff. And then you look at the odds and it's like, yeah, there's like a 1 in 30,000% chance.
It's a relative chance. It's like twice as likely as the next most likely thing to hit Earth.
Yeah. But sometimes when you look around yourself, you realize that, hey, that asteroid up there is actually just a shooting star.
Oh,
and shooting stars are beautiful.
Yeah.
And beauty is good. And good actually
Yeah.
is all around us.
So true. In the form of like falling fireballs from the sky.
So, Michael, what is our good actually this week?
Well, our good actually this week is that some traction is finally being made on some prescription drug prices. Not a lot of traction. Not that much quite yet, but it's finally happening.
Yay.
Yes, not so high-pitched. Yeah, so as part of Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, Medicare is now able to negotiate the prices of prescription drugs. And so the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, through the Centers for Medical and Medicaid Services, announced 10 specific drugs that will be up for negotiation as part of Medicare coverage. Now, the unfortunate part is that these will be negotiated over 2023 and 2024, with prices coming down in 2026, which is tough luck for everybody that needs drugs between now and then. But the fact that we actually have a list of the 10 drugs that will be negotiated is a big step in the right direction. And these are common drugs that people on Medicare need. These are like blood thinners, diabetes medication, arthritis medication, drugs to fight blood cancer, and drugs to help address kidney failure and heart failure, drugs to address some autoimmune diseases, and so like this is something that could ultimately help a lot of people. And even though 2026 is a little far down the road, like, this is a historic milestone. This is the first time this is going to happen, and this is the first time we've taken a significant step like this to bring down the cost of prescription drugs, and that's pretty huge.
And that's good, actually.
So for our next segment, we are talking about the United Auto Workers strike. And Nathan and Katie covered this last week and did a great job, but a lot has happened. Shit has really hit the fan. And so we wanted to delve even deeper into this particular subject and really, take another look at it.
Yeah. So it happened.
Yeah. They struck.
It happened.
They stroke.
They stroke. Would it be they stroke or they
it would be
striked? They
so
striked?
That's a good question. That's a really good question, because sometimes in English, we use a different construction of a present tense verb for a different meaning. So my classic example is hang. If you can hang a bag of groceries, from a doorknob, but if you are executed by hanging, that's also hang. But if it's past tense, you hung the groceries on the doorknob, but you were hanged. So it's like different construction. So
that's a grim example.
Yes. Well, it's like the most clear one.
Yeah.
But so it appears that the past tense is struck.
It is struck. I think it should be striked.
Let's go with striked. I like striked, like hanged.
Yeah.
Okay, so
we are serious analyzers.
Serious analyzers of stuff. Yes, that's us. So, as they mentioned last week, this is a pretty big deal. So, this is a historic strike, and it occurred on midnight on Friday. 9% of the United Auto Workers, 150,000 union members, walked off their jobs in 3 auto plants. This is the first time that the union has striked across all 3 of the big 3 auto manufacturers. So General Motors, Stellantis, which was previously, I think, Chrysler, and Ford. And so they have striked at 3 auto plants, which basically has shut down production for like a bunch of these companies' most popular trucks and cars. And there's like the potential for more striking workers in the coming days. Specifically, the head of the United Auto Workers Union has said that if they don't make significant progress by Friday, they can expect another 13,000 or so, or they'll expect like more workers to walk off the job and shut down more plants. So this is a very big deal. And importantly, it's a very supported deal as well. Like one thing I was blown away by is that the United Auto Workers, took a vote to authorize them to strike, and 97% of UAW membership voted in favor of striking, or in favor of the authorization, which is stunning. You can't get 97% of anybody to agree on anything, including like the sky is blue and the earth is round. So it is clearly a sign that it's long overdue to kind of pursue some of the demands that they're asking for in this case.
And also, their demands aren't necessarily baseless. Like, they have a specific reason behind it. So the companies came back to them and they said, all right, how about a 20% increase in salary?
Mm-hmm.
And the United Auto Workers rejected that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that has been portrayed by some in the media as basically like, oh, look at how unreasonable they are. They're also demanding a 4-day work week. And it's like, oh, look at how unreasonable they are.
Yeah.
And also, I've been seeing articles that have been trying to lay out all of the people in other places around the country that are being laid off as a result of this strike.
Yeah.
As kind of a, oh, look at these, look at these selfish union people. They were offered a 20% increase and they're still striking, and it's resulting in all of these people being laid off. It's like, fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why those people are being laid off is because there are people that are not being paid what they are worth. Mm-hmm. And the reason why they rejected 20% and are demanding 40% is because profits at the big three, this is according to one of the local news channels in the area, Wayne.com, increased by 92% in the last decade.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same period, CEO pay raised by guess how much? 40%.
Mm-hmm.
So all these people are saying, all the United Auto Workers are saying, all the president of United Auto Workers, Sean Fain, is asking for is the same increase, the same raise that the CEO got.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Because, in his words, record profit should equal record contracts.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, much to my surprise, to some extent, Biden used that exact same talking point when asked about this.
Yeah.
Now, we talked last week about how Biden totally shit the bed when it came to the railway strike, but it looks like at least the tone that he's trying to set so far has been much more supportive of the United Auto Workers.
Mm-hmm.
And he has basically been echoing the exact same sentiments of Sean Fain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think their case is so strong, and I think it's a lot of credit to the leadership at the union. Like we don't have to dig too deep into their strategy overall, but they are doing some really smart stuff to kind of enable themselves to gain kind of maximum leverage over the big three auto manufacturers and be able to sustain the strike for a long time without hurting the pay of their workers significantly. So they are really setting themselves up for success here. And to your point, Nathan, we should get the same raise that our CEOs have gotten. That's a pretty, in on a relative basis, that's a pretty compelling thing. And to put the 20% counter offer into perspective, on average, auto worker manufacturers have seen their real hourly earnings since 2008 go down by 19.3%. So essentially, that 20% slap in the face, and I will characterize it as that, is essentially, less than 1% of actual real wage growth.
Yeah,
over that period,
with record inflation.
Yeah,
that, by the way, these corporations have been massively profiting under.
Yes. Yeah.
A good chunk of that should go to the workers. Mm-hmm. It is only fair that a good chunk of that go to the workers, the people that are actually doing, the bulk of the work.
Mm-hmm.
As it stands, the ratio of CEO pay to average worker pay to the median employee compensation in 2022 was 362 to 1. 362 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
That is fucking ridiculous.
It's absolutely fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so literally to Nathan's point, at the same time as these auto manufacturers are making record profits, the union workers have been losing money. Their real wage has been going down over the last 6 years, according to the union president. They lost roughly $10 an hour in wages. At the same time, the big three have made a quarter, like $250 billion in profits. Profits, mind you. This is not sales. This is money they just get to walk away with at the end of the day. And to their union president's point as well, like the auto manufacturers keep saying, like coming up with reasons why they can't possibly afford to meet these demands, right? Because of course they do. That's going to be the main thing they say is that, like, well, we can't stay in business if we pay our workers a living wage, which on principle, like I think I align with Bernie on this point for sure, which is if you can't afford to pay your workers a good wage, you don't deserve to exist as a business. Like,
which is literally exactly what FDR said when he established the minimum wage in the first place. He said that he said that no company that relies on their existence that relies on their existence paying less than a living wage to their employees deserves to do business in the United States.
Yeah.
That's why he established the minimum wage in the first place.
Yep. And so these companies are claiming that they just can't afford to pay these wages. But cost of labor is only 5% of the cost of the vehicle. 5%. So according to, again, Union President Sean Fain, they could, quote, they could double our wages and not raise the prices of vehicles, and they would still make billions of dollars. It's a lie like everything else that comes out of their mouths. Now, that's a pretty charged statement, but like it seems like it's a pretty clear case that these companies are attempting to kind of scapegoat the union when really they're just trying to benefit their bottom line.
And look, I'm going to make a point that I've made before. This is the workers still asking nicely.
Yeah, sure.
All right?
Yeah.
You don't want to know what happens when workers stop asking nicely to be treated fairly. To put it another way, do you want a communist revolution on your hands? Because ignoring this, that's how you get a communist revolution on your hands. I'm not saying I want a communist revolution. I don't want a communist revolution.
Yep.
And I know that you don't want a communist revolution. So maybe if you want to maintain your position as still making billions of dollars, still being at the highest rung of society, then maybe what you should do is listen to your workers. Because you know what? There are more of them than there are of you. And you need them a hell of a lot more than they need you.
Yeah.
In fact, they barely even need you. In an ideal world, most businesses would be worker-owned conglomerates. That's not even what they're asking for.
Yeah.
They're just asking to be paid at a similar increase in rates that your CEO is being paid. That is all they're asking.
Yeah.
It is completely reasonable. And to scapegoat the union that just wants a piece of the profits that they are actively contributing to, that want to be compensated for their productivity that is making your ass billions of dollars, it is the most reasonable thing in the world.
Yeah. Especially because, like, what adds insults to injury with this whole thing is one of the things that the union is contending is that they took a bunch of concessions back in 2008 and 2009 to fucking save the car industry. To your point, like the UAW does not want a communist revolution. They want to save the car industry. They just want to be able to do their jobs and be compensated. So in 2008, 2009, they accepted, cuts to their agreement, they suspended that their wages would go up with the cost of living and things like that were never reinstated after the financial crisis was over. When not Ford, but the other big car companies were taking like billions of dollars in bailouts, they were also borrowing from the wages of their workers, essentially. And that was never unwound and was never, like, that compensation was never returned back to the workers. And so, like, they have saved the asses of these companies before. And literally all they're asking is to keep up with the record crazy profits that they're making, which is only fair and it's only reasonable. And the auto manufacturers are doing everything they can to keep them from getting it, including trying to lay this at the feet of the transformation of our auto infrastructure to electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah, which has definitely put the Biden administration in a bit of a bind that we should talk about at least a little bit. So as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, the companies, like auto companies, are incentivized to invest in electric vehicle R&D. And these companies, though, are claiming that there's just no way that they can invest as much as they need to in electric vehicles in order to keep up with the industry while meeting these pay demands. Except that's exactly what the fucking incentives are for. Like, they're literally being paid to, from the Inflation Reduction Act, to invest in electric vehicle technologies, and invest in like transforming manufacturing facilities into EV facilities. And they'll also benefit from all of the tax cuts as part of the IRA that go to consumers for buying electric vehicles. Like, there will benefit extremely from this law. And in some ways, it would leave the workers totally in the lurch if they don't pass along the extreme benefit that they're getting as part of the EV transition, like, to their workers. So it's like, it's just a slap in the face. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And both Trump and I also saw Pence, and I'm sure that plenty of other Republican candidates have probably made statements about this as well. But I specifically saw them. They ran with that talking point. Mm-hmm. They're having a field day with that talking point. And basically, the allegation is based on a certain level of truth, but is manipulated in a way that is one of the most dishonest talking points that I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. So what they say is that because most batteries are manufactured, for the batteries for electric vehicles are manufactured in Asia, many of which in China, investing in electric vehicles, as the Biden administration is doing, is directly attempting to ship jobs overseas with regard to automaking. And therefore, the only way that you can save your job in terms of as a factory worker in the auto industry is by rejecting Joe Biden and voting for Trump or voting for Pence or voting for Republicans in general so that they can fight against electric vehicles. And they're specifically citing the Inflation Reduction Act as a move to basically be a huge giveaway for China. Mm-hmm. So here's why that's bullshit. So the reason why there was so much investment in the Inflation Reduction Act with regard to electric vehicles, and actually not even just the Inflation Reduction Act, also the CHIP Act, is specifically because we don't want that shit manufactured in China.
Yeah.
All right? We want to manufacture it here.
Yeah.
And in order for us to be able to manufacture it here, we have to invest in the industry. We have to create financial incentives for companies to be building those factories here. We have to create incentives for the resources to be gathered here. Now, the resources might be more of a complicated issue because it's going to depend on actually what parts of the world they actually are, what part of the world they actually are. But the point behind the Inflation Reduction Act was that the status quo was allowing China to basically have control over the electric car industry. And no, we want that here. We want the electric car industry here.
A status quo which was perpetuated under the Trump administration.
Exactly.
For all of their posturing about being anti-China supremacy. Yeah.
So that's complete bullshit. And Fain has even directly said, like, you fucked us over plenty like under your administration. Don't even try to appeal to us right now.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky thing for sure. Because the UAW is definitely upset with Biden, basically over the fact that the electric vehicle subsidies kind of go directly to the bottom lines of, or directly as investment to the auto manufacturers. But
which is a fair criticism.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yeah, I'd say that's right. Although it's a little bit difficult to see how you would incentivize the construction of EVs without doing that. Like paying directly to the workers wouldn't necessarily work, but like you might be able to figure it out. But is potentially a fair criticism, and certainly a criticism that might be felt by auto workers. Again, seeing the administration support record profits at these huge companies while they're not getting cost of living wage increases. So ultimately, like, Biden's reputation as a labor person, at least the reputation he tries to cultivate, kind of depends on the success of this UAW negotiation and strike. But it's also, to your point, heartening to hear the official kind of position of the UAW, where Sean Fain said of Trump, quote, "Every fiber of our union is being poured into fighting the billionaire class and an economy that enriches people like Donald Trump at the expense of workers." Can I just say, I like this Sean Fain guy.
I like him too.
Fucking cool. He's pretty good. He really, I think he's doing an impressive job. I think he's effectively managing the strike on all of the fronts, right? He's like managing the money, he's managing the politics, and he's managing kind of the PR side of this. And I really am hoping that the UAW, reaps the benefits and gets the things they're asking for.
And hell, after they do, bro, fucking run for something.
Yeah. And now it's time for a more lighthearted segment, a miscellaneous what the fuck. So Nathan, what the fuck is a miscellaneous what the fuck?
Well, Michael, I'll tell you what the fuck a miscellaneous what the fuck is. So a miscellaneous what the fuck is a segment that we created because we have a segment for particularly heinous individuals, the asshat of the week, and we have a segment for people that just make stupid arguments, the Dershowitz bag. But sometimes we get a story where a person's not necessarily being heinous or a particularly heinous individual, and a person didn't necessarily make a really stupid argument, but it's just a ridiculous story that's funny. And we just have to look at and laugh at and just look at the story and just say, what the fuck?
Oh man, I have to say I'm getting to love this segment more and more. I love how random the shit that comes in is, and there's like no end to all the fucking absolutely absurd stuff that comes onto our radar. Yeah. So what could possibly meet the bar of just staring at an event with hilarity and in stunned silence, Nathan?
So apparently, I don't even know how to start this.
I think it's a Beetlejuice hand job. It's
wait, what? Oh God. Oh God. I was about to make a joke about, but oh God. Wait, a what type of hand job?
Beetlejuice.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Beetlejuice.
Fuck!
What the fuck?
Okay, so it started out. So obviously, we're in case if you haven't already guessed, we're talking about Representative Lauren Boebert,
which is a surprise. The fact that we started off with Beetlejuice hand job, and then the next thing you said was we're talking about Representative United States House of Representatives, Representative of Colorado, Lauren fucking Boebert. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So okay, it started off. So she was apparently in a theater watching Beetlejuice.
Yeah. The musical.
It was the Bull Theater, the musical. And it started out. What we knew was that she was having a good time. She was vaping. She was singing along with it. She was apparently being really disruptive and annoying. So there were some patrons that went to the theater and they were like, hey, these people over here, they're being really disruptive. Could you go to them and be like, hey, just, take it easy. And so the people in the theater came in and they were like, hey, we heard you were being disruptive. Please stop or you will be asked to leave. And they continued. So there were complaints again, and they ended up being, going back to Lauren Boebert, and all of this is according to the official incident report. All right. The management of the theater came back to them and were like, all right, seriously, you need to leave now. And they refused to leave. So they're like, okay, we're going to call the cops. And they actually had to be escorted out. While apparently Lauren Boebert was like screaming shit like, do you know who I am? I'm on the board, which I don't know what fucking board she's talking about. I will be contacting the mayor, which, I mean, I'm pretty sure the mayor's a Democrat, so I don't even know what the fuck the mayor's gonna, because this is Denver, I believe. Yeah. So I don't know what that stuff's all about, but that's according to the people of the theater. That's what she was saying. And by the way, I'd just like to point out, I hate a person to their core if they ever say any version of the phrase, do you know who I am?
I know.
Like, it's the most pretentious thing a person can say.
Yeah.
Like, you're the villain. I hate you to your core if you say any version of that in a serious manner. And it seemed like that was it. It was just a weird story in which they were being disruptive. They were being annoying people in a theater. Apparently they were also recording with their phones, which, God, that is, as someone who has done theater, not professionally, obviously, but like, that is just so fucking disrespectful. Like,
could you imagine someone fucking vaping and singing along and recording the show?
Yeah,
with fucking flash.
Yeah, in the middle of it. Yeah, like, I mean, if it's one of those, performances where singing along is expected, like, yeah, knock yourself out.
This is Beetlejuice the musical, a professional musical on a proscenium stage. Yeah. This is not one of those. This is not a sing along.
Yeah. But it turns out the plot thickens because she had been making a big deal about how she was being targeted by these people, that it was unfair that she was kicked out. So the theater was like, okay, well, we're going to release a video of you in the theater and show the world just what you were doing. And it turns out it went beyond just singing along and vaping.
No.
Because she and the person she was with were feeling each other up. Like, I'm talking second base, OTBHJ. And a reminder, this is a kids show.
Yeah.
Like, this is a fucking kids show. There are children in the theater.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, a reminder, this person is one of the people that runs the government.
Yeah. And as if that isn't crazy enough, the plot thickens even more. Oh my God. Because apparently, you remember, Lauren Boebert is like, she has been marketing herself as one of the most anti-LGBT congresswomen in the House of Representatives. Like, it's family value, which, by the way, even already, like, the whole, already that demonstrates a certain level of hypocrisy. But like, the guy that she's apparently been secretly dating owns a gay-friendly bar that hosts drag shows.
Now that's the true shocker.
She's with a Democrat.
Oh, amazing.
She's with a Democrat.
I can't decide if it would make me feel better
drag shows
or worse if she was just totally full of shit. Yeah. Part of me would be like, oh, thank God. Like, she's not actually as fucking awful and heinous and crazy as she thinks. But the worst part is she thinks that's the way to be successful, is by being as awful and crazy and heinous as she is. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting because I always thought of her as, like one of the Republicans that wasn't in on the joke. But I don't know. Maybe she is.
She's in the corner making her own jokes. Yeah.
If so, she is really good at playing.
She should be on the Beetlejuice stage.
Crazy.
Yeah, she should.
She should. She should.
Absolutely.
And look, I'd like to point out the reason why there's a miscellaneous what the fuck and not a regular segment is because this is not a serious issue. Like, this is definitely not a serious issue.
Yeah.
But what I would say, there is the most important part of this story that I think that should be the big takeaway about Lauren Boebert,
Yeah.
about this story is the fact that she voted against the PRO Act.
What's the PRO Act?
It's a pro-union piece of legislation. And now with the rise of unions around the country and the rise of strikes, she's not on that side.
Yeah.
So the biggest point is, I personally don't really care that much what's happening in a theater. I can laugh at it, but the fact of the matter is, she's a terrible fucking congresswoman.
Yeah. Man, what the fuck? And now we will end our show as we usually do with our highlights. So Nathan, what's your highlight this week?
My highlight this week, and this might sound really lame, but like I laughed for an embarrassing amount of time on this. I saw a bumper sticker today, and it had a pun that made me laugh for way too long.
This is terrible.
So it's nothing inappropriate.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was a bumper sticker that seems to be advertising. It was like a yard chickens or chickeninyouryards.com or chicken for your yard, something like that. And the motto was, it's cheap therapy.
What? I don't know what that means.
It's cheap therapy. So it's
like
a
cheap,
site.
Cheap? Like a bird?
It's
pun?
Yeah, like a bird, but it's cheap as in it doesn't cost much.
When you said it was a bumper sticker, I was concerned that it might be something like, stop following these nuts or something.
No.
But I think that's actually worse.
I thought it was so funny. It's like you're selling chickens for like for people's yards.
It's cheap
and
therapy.
It's cheap therapy. That is hilarious.
That's pretty good. It's cheap therapy. All right, I'm coming around to it.
As someone that grew up with chickens, like I just appreciated that so much. And I know that is the fact that is the highlight of my week. It might sound sad, but it just gave me so much joy.
Yeah. It's not sad because you don't have other highlights. It's very high because you thought it was awesome. Yeah.
I just thought it was awesome. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yep. Fair enough.
What about you, Michael? What's your highlight?
Okay. Well, I am going on vacation, which is important for you, dear listener, because we're going to be off the pod for a couple weeks while I'm gone. And Nathan is doing awesome coaching badass stuff around trotting around the country and stuff like that. I'm going to be on vacation and I'm so excited. I have not been on like an extended vacation for more than like a couple days in well over a year. I'm exhausted. Work is exhausting. I've been, I'm getting close to being burnt out. I definitely need a break and I am so excited to get a break. So
I'm really glad you're going to get that.
Thanks, buddy. And now we will thank the amazing people that make this show possible. So thank you to our patrons, Jerry DeViller, Kyle Chaska, Fade Out Scoop, and Taylor Bloom and Tobias Janssen for help supporting the show. Thank you to our amazing editor, Kayla, for all they do to make this show possible. And thank you, dear listener, for listening to The Perspectrum. And you'll hear from us again in 3 weeks.